Welcome back, everyone, to another deep dive. You know, we always like to get into the nitty-gritty of these narratives.
Yeah, we do.
And today we're going to be looking at someone's life story, but specifically the early years.
The foundation.
Yeah, the foundations and the influences from, your childhood, their family, all of that.
Exactly. The kind of things that make a person who they are.
Right. And I think our listeners will find this particularly interesting because we're going to be using some really fascinating personal accounts.
Oh, yeah. Very, very personal stuff here.
So let's dive in. And I guess the best place to start is with the family background, right?
Absolutely lay the groundwork.
So right off the bat, we learn that the narrator comes from a pretty distinguished family in Geneva.
Mm-hmm.
And not just like your average family either. We're talking ancestors who served as counselors and syndics for generations.
Real pillars of the community.
Exactly. A long line of people involved in the government and shaping the city.
You have to wonder what kind of legacy that creates, right? I mean, to grow up knowing your family has that kind of history.
Oh, absolutely. It must have instilled a certain sense of duty, maybe even a specific way of looking at the world.
Yeah, for sure. And speaking of duty, the text really emphasizes the narrator's father and his commitment to public service.
Oh, yeah. He's described as having unwavering integrity and really devoting himself to his country.
It's interesting, though, the text points out that this was mostly in his younger years.
Oh.
Yeah, it seems like he focused entirely on his country, and only later in life did he decide to marry and have a family.
So a real shift in priorities, then.
Exactly. And make you wonder what prompted that change.
Well, that brings us to the story of his marriage, and this is where things get really interesting.
Oh, yeah, buckle up.
So he had this close friend named Beaufort, a merchant, who unfortunately experienced a pretty dramatic reversal of fortune.
A classic fall from grace story.
Right, from prosperity to basically poverty.
Mm-hmm.
The text says it was due to numerous mischances.
Makes you think how quickly things can change, doesn't it?
Oh, absolutely. One minute you're at the top of the world, the next.
And Beaufort, he doesn't take it well at all.
No, he's described as having a proud and unbending disposition.
So the thought of everyone seeing him struggling in the same place where he was once so successful.
Too much to bear.
Exactly. So he decides to withdraw, completely takes his daughter Caroline, and they move to Lucerne to try and live in obscurity.
So basically he chose hardship over humility.
You can see it that way. And the narrator's father saw it as a kind of false pride.
Yeah, he was really troubled by his friend's decision.
Well, they were very close, and he really wanted to help Beaufort get back on his feet.
Right, so he sets out to find him, which actually took quite a while, 10 months.
Wow, talk about dedication.
Yeah, it seems Beaufort really wanted to disappear.
Well, he'd gone to great lengths to avoid being found.
And when he finally does track him down, it's near the Reuss River, and the situation is pretty dire.
Oh.
Yeah, Beaufort's health is failing. He's basically paralyzed by grief, and he has almost no money left.
So not only is he physically unwell, but he's emotionally broken too.
Right. But there is one bright spot in all of this, his daughter, Caroline.
Ah, yes, Caroline.
Despite their terrible circumstances, she's incredibly devoted to her father, caring for him with such tenderness.
It's remarkable, really, to see that kind of strength in such a young person.
And she's not just caring for him, she's actually trying to support them both.
How's she managing that?
By doing any kind of work, she can find planes, sewing, pleating straw, anything to earn a little money.
Wow, talk about resilience.
I know, it's incredible. And then sadly, Beaufort passes away.
Leaving Caroline all alone.
An orphan and completely destitute, a truly heartbreaking situation.
It is, and that's the moment when the narrator's father steps in. It's like he becomes her guardian angel.
Yeah, the text describes it that way. He takes her under his wing, brings her back to Geneva, arranges for her to stay with a relative.
A true act of kindness.
And then 2 years later, they get married.
Wow, what a turn of events.
I know, it's pretty unexpected, right? Especially considering the age difference between them.
Mm-hmm. That must have raised some eyebrows.
Probably, but it seems they had a really deep connection.
And it's important to note that it wasn't just pity that motivated the father.
Right. He genuinely admired Caroline's strength and resilience.
He respected her tried worth, as the text says.
And he wanted to make up for all the hardship she'd endured.
It's almost like he felt a sense of responsibility towards her.
Yeah, and he constantly prioritized her well-being, putting her happiness above everything else.
This is a very different kind of love story, isn't it?
It is, and it shows that a strong bond can be built on shared values and mutual respect.
Absolutely. So after everything she'd been through, Caroline's health wasn't great.
Makes sense.
And her spirits were low, too. So the father decides to take her traveling.
Oh, like a restorative journey?
Exactly. They went all over Italy, Germany, France, seeking out pleasant climates and new experiences.
So basically a proto-wellness retreat.
You could say that, and it's during these travels while they're in Naples that the narrator is born.
Ah, the next generation.
And as their first and for several years, only child.
They were showered with love.
Oh, I bet imagine the joy they brought after such a difficult period.
The text talks about the mother's tender caresses and the father's benevolent smile.
Those are the narrator's first and most cherished memories.
Oh, that's sweet. So they really created a loving and secure environment for their child.
But they didn't just dote on them.
No, they also took their role as parents very seriously.
They saw it as a sacred trust.
Yeah, they knew that how they raised their child would have a huge impact on their future happiness.
That's a big responsibility.
It is, and they made a conscious effort to instill important values like patience, charity, and self-control.
Sounds like a very deliberate approach to parenting.
Definitely, but also a gentle one. The text describes it as leading the narrator with a silken cord.
So not harsh or authoritarian.
Not at all. They wanted their child's early years to be filled with joy and security.
And I think that's important to remember as we move on to the next part of the story.
Okay, so now the narrator is about 5 years old,
Right.
and their family takes a trip to Lake Como.
Beautiful place.
It is, and it's during this trip that we see the mother's compassionate nature come to the forefront again.
Oh, how so?
Well, she always felt a strong need to help those less fortunate than herself.
And I think that stems directly from her own experiences.
You're right. She knew what it was like to suffer and to be rescued by kindness, so she wanted to pay it forward.
This cycle of compassion.
Exactly. And it's this impulse that leads them to a very poor cottage on the shores of the lake.
I wonder what they find there.
Well, they meet a peasant family with 5 children,
Okay.
but among them, there's one girl who immediately stands out.
How so?
She's described as having golden hair, clear blue eyes, and this almost ethereal beauty.
Despite living in poverty.
Exactly. And her name is Elizabeth Lavenza.
Elizabeth Lavenza.
The mother is instantly drawn to her. She sees something special in this little girl.
And we soon learn why.
Yes. The peasant woman tells them Elizabeth's story.
I'm all ears.
Her father was a Milanese nobleman involved in the fight for Italian liberty.
Ah, so a political figure.
Right. And sadly, her mother died when Elizabeth was born.
Oh, how tragic.
Then, because of his political activities, the father's property was confiscated, leaving Elizabeth an orphan.
And so she ended up with this foster family.
That's right. Another tale of lost privilege and hardship.
It echoes Caroline's own story in a way.
It does. And when the narrator's father returns from Milan,
He meets Elizabeth.
yes, he finds her playing with their own child, and he's instantly moved by her.
I can imagine it must have been a touching sight.
It was, and the mother, well, she's determined to give Elizabeth a better life.
So she decides to adopt her,
Well, she persuades the foster parents to let them take care of Elizabeth.
which I'm sure wasn't an easy decision.
No, but the peasant family, they recognized the opportunity it would give Elizabeth.
A chance for a more secure and loving home.
Exactly. And so Elizabeth Lavenza becomes a part of their family.
More than just a sister to the narrator.
Yeah, the text emphasizes that she's a beloved companion in every sense of the word.
What a significant change to their family dynamic.
And everyone absolutely adores Elizabeth.
Oh, that's lovely.
The narrator talks about how much pride and joy they felt in sharing that affection with her.
It's like their love just expanded to include this new person.
Exactly. And there's this cute anecdote about the mother promising the narrator a pretty present,
Okay.
and then she presents Elizabeth as the gift.
I love that.
And the narrator, being so young, takes it literally.
Of course.
And immediately feels this sense of protectiveness towards Elizabeth, almost like she's their own special possession.
So sweet, and they start calling each other cousin.
Right, which is interesting because it suggests a bond that goes beyond typical sibling rivalry.
And the narrator really believes that their connection with Elizabeth is destined to last a lifetime.
Sets the stage for a very intense relationship as they grow older.
It does. So we've covered a lot of ground here.
Yeah.
A family steeped in tradition, a marriage born out of compassion and respect, a childhood filled with love and purpose.
And now the arrival of Elizabeth, who adds a whole new dimension to the family.
It's really fascinating to think about how all these factors might shape the narrator's future.
Yeah, what kind of impact do these early relationships and experiences have on a person's life?
And that's something we want you, our listeners, to consider. What do you think? How might these intensely formative years influence the narrator's decisions, their beliefs, their entire outlook on the world?
It's a question worth pondering, isn't it?
It really is. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive.
Always a pleasure.
And we'll see you next time for another fascinating exploration.
Until then, keep digging.
Bye, everyone.